Welcome to Scrap Mechanic. Today we are working on hovercrafts, and this is the little cutie that I've been working on lately. It was my original attempt, but before we get too much into that, I already gave you guys a bit of a teaser. Let's go into some of the things that you're going to need to be able to do, or some of the things that I've included in my project so far that you're going to need when it comes to hovercraft. First and most important, and will also be the last thing that you need to work on, is the main ballast engines. We have them here. I can show you over here the importance of them. We use these as primarily our holding point. This keeps us up in the air. Those will be the main four that you see kind of in the middle there. Those lined up that aren't turning on and off. So you want to try and balance how much power you put into these thrusters and the weight you have on top. These are all but the corners here, are all heavy blocks just to keep it down, even at its lowest. So here we have a barely enough thrusters going on. Let's grab that before it runs away. And over here, let me put this on the lift because this one's kind of funny. This is a stabilization sort of system that I've come up with. We have sensors here which detect how far away the floor is. So we're just gonna hook these up so I can actually do a demonstration here without having this fly off while I'm started this. There we go. And boom. This will sort of even itself out. It'll kind of wobble a little as it figures itself out. But with these at a lower setting and the ballast engines at a higher one, this will, between the two, it will balance fairly well and it won't really go anywhere. So let's put that back down and disconnect that. I just don't want everything flying around everywhere. Okay, so now that we've done that, I can show you some of the other engines that we have. The middle layer there, sort of what all these engines do. They're fairly straightforward. If I can remember what button to press. There we go. So we're gonna lift up off the ground a bit, and then balance ourselves out with the two sets of thrusters down there, kind of doing their job. We bounced a little bit, but that's okay for now. It'll probably be less pronounced as we make bigger crafts, but let's start off with the four primary directions. We have forward, which is hooked up to the control, the driver's seat there. And I have these three buttons which control the thrusters going backwards, left, and right. And if we can kind of stop moving everywhere. I then also just hooked up the main ballast engines onto a switch, which then turns it off and more or less parks it. And I still have yet to figure out what to do about these engines that are still always kind of on. But we'll work with that when we move on to our next project. Next thing we're going to be doing, and I might take you along on that depending on how I feel, we're going to be testing out gyroscopes. If those of you familiar with what the purpose of a gyroscope is, I should have built one, but I'm just going to describe it. It basically is a spinning thing that will stay level to itself and the way that it's spinning, and will, as the rest of the structure moves, it will be able to, it'll allow us to know when it is tilted. Once we know that, then we can figure out how to correct it. So here we have a little bit of an example of a gyroscope at work. We have a little an electric motor cranked all the way, or electric engine cranked all the way up to this one, knocking into my mic, this one bearing. And we have this one free spinning pivot point. So what we can do from here is, if I can you can see I have a little button here, little switch, which is going to demonstrate how the gyroscope is going to keep a level for us, and it's going to show us exactly, you know, when we're tilting and when we need to righten up a little bit. I think it has moved a little bit, probably with all the testing I've done. But it is a very small amount, and once it comes back down, it should be fairly level. Yeah, that's pretty good. So all we need to do is hook this up to at least one more pivot point, figure out how we can do that without having too much balance issues, and from there, we'll see how this goes. Okay, so don't worry about this contraption so much. Look, let's focus on the gyroscope itself, and I can show you a few things of what I've done here. But let's first show off the tilting here. Now you'll probably notice that I have two spinning gyroscopes at this point. The easiest answer for that is the forces involved with starting and stopping one or changing direction was causing the whole thing to move ever so slightly. So what I've done, if we can turn this off, oh, you actually can't, it doesn't have much of a wind down time at all whatsoever. But you can kind of see they're spinning in opposite directions. You can probably see that best through here. So one's going clockwise, one's going counterclockwise. But the point of that, of course, is to equal out the forces being exerted in opposite directions. So this works very well now with those two. It might be a little big for for what I need it for, but this is working pretty good. Let me get out of that view. But yeah, between the two angles, which by the way is really only just this one here and this one there, I have the rest of this ring going around, even though it's not connected, like right in that line there, it's not connected. That is solely for weight purposes. So one crucial thing to note is you need to have plenty of room, a clearance room for the gyroscope to spin without any sort of random jumps and such. This is just kind of spinning for demonstration purposes, that it's not going to knock into anything as far as the supports for the gyroscope, nor the support of the hovercraft itself. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Alright, so let me try setting these off. See if I can't get a reaction. Let's see what it does. There we go. Get this thruster boosting. I'm not sure those are actually powerful enough in the corners here. They're good enough for keeping it a good distance off the ground, but I'm not sure yet. There's a lot more building and weight balancing to do yet, though. Alright, so before we move on, I have one more thing I need to try. Okay. This should self-correct and be fine in just a moment. Kind of. It is kind of uneven around here, so I'm curious to see how long that takes. It looks like it's settled. It's a little wobbly still, but I think that's because it's still pretty lightweight. You know, we are using lightweight blocks to build this for now, and it is mostly just a testing rig, though we are going to use that gyroscope. That feel when you accidentally break the wrong block. There it is. And there she is. Figured I'd hop into the old hovercraft, whiz around it a little. But mostly symmetrical. Is pretty much all made of the gyroscope. Is the main feature of it, I suppose. Whoa, this thing's a piece of junk. Alright, let's get out of this. If we could. This way, I think. Alright, well. On to the next one. Let's raise this up because I like to make sure that gyroscope has enough time to spin before it settles. And here we go. Alright, so we have the ballast engines set to number 5. Once those get off the ground, we're pretty balanced, and we can raise our landing gears. We have some little suspension there in the middle, and that's primarily to protect the gyroscope, to keep it from hitting the ground, really. Because on occasion, depending on the terrain I'm going over, this can get pretty close to the ground. And as you saw with the other one, I had a really hard time just keeping it level and maneuvering it, feeling like I need to press a lot of buttons. Right now I'm basically just hitting forward, and the hovercraft itself takes care of all the little details. So yeah, right now we're kind of bobbing back and forth. You can see how the gyroscope really stays still in the middle there. Well, we're bobbing around and bouncing. So it uses that static nature of the gyroscope to figure out that it's falling over one way or another. We're kind of bouncing a lot right now. I think that has more to do with the terrain than anything, but let's try to take on something a little more interesting, like even just this hill over here. Oop. I just wanted to see that. I added some extra sensors on the side here for like if we get too close to the ground so we're not slamming into it. Might see them go off on occasion, but those are just to keep me from hitting the ground, basically. Yeah, when we get really close, like a lot of thrusters start to go off. There we go. Beep. Because especially when I'm on a hill, and now we're up in the air. This seems to happen a lot in heavy terrain, but I'm not really sure how to better solve that. It's just trying to correct itself, and it uses the data from its angle and the ground height. You see, like, yeah, when I end up going over large terrain and falling quite a bit, I do kind of slam into the ground a little. So that's why we're trying to protect the gyroscope with all those little feet down there. But for the most part, it keeps itself upright. And the only times that I've ever had an issue with it flipping over is when I hit a tree, which is why I have these little bumpers on suspensions on the side now. I'm not sure if they really do anything for me. Well, I was gonna try to hit a tree, but it's it's a little tricky. Whoa! See? We're fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, I might want to turn down the ones that it gets close to the ground, because it still kind of bounces a little bit. I just turned them down even just a moment ago. But for now, we can see that now that we're in a fairly level area, we can just come to a nice soft landing for the most part. And yeah, I'm very excited about this. I'm not sure what more I can do with it outside of like being really anal about the thruster positioning and all that, and I really don't want to get into that. Maybe another time. For the most part, I think this is mission success. Okay, so now I just want to take a look with you guys at the wiring here, just to give you an idea of what's going on and all that. Why am I... Never mind. There is a lot going on here. These chairs are doing nothing. They're there for ballast reasons and because, hey, why not, right? I've got chairs in the front. I have two chairs for weight distribution purposes. That is the main thing, is keeping the weight distribution pretty good. And you kind of have to tell just based on the way it kind of leans while it's hovering over the ground. I wish there was an easier way to figure out that. But let's take a look at some of these things a little more in depth. So we have over here a sensor, which is the gyroscope sensor. So as the gyroscope falls this way, it will set off this sensor, which then goes out to 2 of the thrusters over there. I won't even bother trying to point out which ones, because there's a whole bunch. It's just a wall of thrusters on either side. But you get the idea. And, oh, I added these up here. Like, we have these sensors, which are powering these in the corner. We can show you that. Fairly straightforward, nice and simple. So, these are the ones that are keeping it level to the ground. And these are the ones that I more recently added. These are much higher up, and the purpose of that, of course, is to only turn on the thrusters as it gets well below this point where these sensors are going off. Which I suppose I could show you. What? You've seen it already. So, yeah, from there is just the same thruster array. Let me get up there. For the most part, thrusters that... Here, let me do it while we're on the ground. So I can show you. Oh, in the back here, right in the middle, behind that engine, between those 2 little goalposts that I made, you can see... that's where I have my steering connected to, and that, although one thruster isn't turning on visually for some reason, but it seems to work. These are sort of my turning thrusters. Makes sense. We have strafing thrusters as well as back and forward. And yeah, that pretty much covers it. The rest does it by itself. Alright guys, well I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was certainly a lot of fun to make. It took a lot longer than I really wanted it to, but we got something cool out of it, so I can't complain. So that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Oh boy. Oh man, that vertigo. Woo! Like a champ. Oh no! Alright, well, it'll come down. Let's see if I can catch it. Oh no! Oh no!